in all of the readings that you heard over the course of this service. I'm not sure if you really heard the message of our students. I hope you did. It was written beautifully, and it was offered beautifully. But I'd like to clarify for a moment maybe what I heard in their voices, in their writings, and in what they shared with us. It's been now almost 200 years since Jews outside of the land of Israel have been performing this ceremony called Shavuot, called confirmation during Shavuot. We're about to celebrate this holiday in a couple of weeks, where the Jewish people came from the land of Egypt, and Moses said to them as they left, in 7 weeks and 1 day, something's going to happen. And I don't really necessarily understand what it is, and you all definitely don't understand what it is, but something's going to happen. And that 50 days later became Shavuot, the holiday in which we remember receiving the Torah. And about 200 years ago, rabbis in Central Europe decided that this would be the perfect time to have a service for their high school students to do something. And a good question would be, what is it that they do, and why do we do it? I mean, didn't they already accept Torah at their B'nai Mitzvah? Why on the holiday of Shavuot should we have a new service called confirmation? And I think you heard, hopefully, in their voices tonight that there are what I think two reasons. The first reason is that when the Jewish people were at Mount Sinai, something happened. Something that they didn't understand till they got there, but when they got there, something happened, and it was so clear and so perfect. They got the Torah through revelation, and they understood every single word that they heard. And everyone agreed on everything. And then it ended. And we've been fighting about all of it ever since. For one moment in history, all of the Jews understood what Torah was. But then God's voice was removed. We were left with the Torah, and we've been trying to figure it out ever since. You heard in some of the voices what they love about Judaism is it allows them to have their own voice and say, you think that about being Jewish, but here's what I think. Just like the rabbis did. One rabbi said the mezuzah has to be horizontal. The other rabbi says, no, it has to be vertical. And finally they said, neither of us know, let's just slant it and hope for the best. And that's how we are on almost every issue. We're looking at these issues of the Torah and trying to figure out how do they fit into our lives. And so Shavuot, the holiday of reception of the Torah, is our time and now our students' times to recognize that we have Torah in our lives. Our goal is to make it fit. But we need the wherewithal, we need the infrastructure in our minds, we need the apparatus to be able to make that Torah fit in our lives. And so we have confirmation to allow our students to say, it's not easy to be Jewish. It's not so clear. It takes a lot of thought, and I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. And these students here now have a better understanding of what that means and hopefully how to make it fit into our lives. To me, that's reason number one for confirmation, to admit that ever since the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, we Jews have been trying to figure out how to make it fit inside of the milieu in which we live. Reason number two, confirmation is a creation of the diaspora. It grew in Central Europe and made its way to the United States because we Jews today live in a world surrounded by other people who aren't Jewish, who don't live according to the Torah, who aren't halachic, and who aren't always interested in making it easier for us to live lives of Torah. And so I think that in this idea of Shavuot also, some of you had a chance to study this idea with me a week ago. There is part, or at least a hint towards the other answer of what is the point of confirmation. In 1865, the president that was most beloved by the Jewish people, for many great reasons, Abraham Lincoln, was assassinated. And after he was assassinated, it was declared by his successor, Andrew Johnson, that there would be a day of mourning and a proclamation known as Proclamation number 129, in which he said, we're going to declare a day of mourning for all of the United States to mourn the assassination of President Lincoln. And then the Christian clergy came to him and said, the day you picked is called Advent. It's a Christian holiday, and you can't mourn on that day. And so Andrew Johnson said, then I have a new declaration, number 130, and he gave a new date. And the new date was Shavuot, a holiday in which it's forbidden for Jews to mourn, as it says in the Torah, V'samachta b'chagecha, and you shall rejoice on your holidays. For the Jewish community in 1865 in this country, who loved Lincoln more than any other president, and sure as heck liked him more than the other rulers of the other countries where it didn't go so well, they had a real conundrum. If we don't mourn, the rest of the country will see us as unpatriotic, and besides, we love this president. And if we do mourn, we're going against our own holiday when we're not allowed to. And so different rabbis across the country had different reactions. One rabbi said, don't worry about it. What do we do at the end of Shavuot? Yizkor. We'll mourn at the end of the day, and it'll be fine. It was like an interesting idea. But was born in that conversation was a clarification of the question we've been dealing with ever since: are we American Jews or are we Jewish Americans? And while we each struggle with that probably in one way or another, and the truth is it really doesn't matter, what matters is that we recognize the struggle, we each have to admit that we are Jews who live in the milieu of being Jews in America. And every year that I've been going to confirmation, this is now the 22nd time, the first one where one of my kids is in it. I'd like to welcome all of you to Ella's confirmation, by the way. What you heard in their voices was how they're clarifying for themselves, what does it mean to be a Jew living in an American milieu? That definition has changed throughout the times, throughout the ages. But our prayer, and what we've been working so hard to do all year, is to help them clarify what it means for them, just as it means something different for each and every one of us. My prayer for our confirmands tonight is that they will continue their lifelong struggle with how to make Torah fit into their lives. And so long as they live in this great country, they'll continue to wrestle with the idea of what it means to bring our Jewish values to this country that we live in. Ken Yiratzon. May this be their future. Amen.